Hello, fellow moaners. Welcome to Make Yourself Moan podcast. I'm your host, Madison Monroe Curtis, and it's time to dive deeper.
Oh,
Are you
I hope
ready?
we can get this open.
We can.
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready.
So, what did you bring for the occasion?
I brought my infamous bottle of wine.
You do
And
always have a bottle of
I
wine.
do.
Normally a box, if we're being honest.
Bottle.
But you do the honors of lighting the candles.
Yes.
Thank you. We got 3. So where'd you get this bottle?
I got that from Natchez, Mississippi at the Natchez Winery.
Old South.
Old South Winery. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's very good. This one's like a rosé because it's one of your favorites. They sell a lot of blueberry, strawberry. It's a really good taste. It's in the middle of a really bad area.
Oh, that's
Very
unfortunate.
bad area. You run in and get your wine and lock your car and hope somebody doesn't kill you while you're getting your wine. But it's worth it for a good bottle of wine, I always say.
Worth getting murdered over.
At least you'll have a good story to tell when you get to heaven. Because there will be wine in heaven. That's one of my things. Hopefully dogs too, but we know there's wine.
Dogs and wine.
Mm-hmm. I know there's horses, but I'm assuming there's dogs because God would not have created dogs if they weren't in heaven. And how do you spell God backwards?
That's clever. Actually, that warms my heart. I did want to mention you brought 2 bottles over as options, which you may get into that one as well. But this one I chose first because it's called Old South.
Mm-hmm.
Southern Belle. We are where?
Mississippi.
Yes, we're in Tupelo, Mississippi.
And the South, for the people that don't know.
I'll take this podcast all over the world, but currently we're in the heart of the South. Cheers. Thank you for coming to Make Yourself Moan podcast. I love you.
I love you too. This is terrible. No, I'm just kidding.
Really?
I'm kidding. It's good.
It's really good.
People are like, that's terrible. No, it's not. It's good.
It's good. I want to drink all of it.
Not if I get it first.
It's on my side. What makes you moan? Because that is the name of the podcast.
Okay. Wine. Always a really good glass or bottle of wine. A book, a wonderful book from one of my favorite authors, and a candle. Always Bath and Body Works candles. Always the 3 wicks.
Not the single wick.
No,
Gotta
it's
get
not
those
enough.
big 3
Got a
wicks.
3 wick. Books make me happy.
And the wine. Because you like the wine while you're reading the book.
Yes.
But it's kind of a trifecta. You want to light the candle, you want to read the book, and you want to sip the wine all at the same time.
Yes.
Is that kind of a routine for you?
I do. And dogs. I can't miss throwing the dogs in there. So every night when I get home, I walk in, I say hello to the dogs, I light the candle, I go pour myself a glass of wine, and then I feed the dogs so I can sit there and watch them eat all happily while I'm sipping my glass of wine. And the candle is adding ambiance to the atmosphere. I don't even have to eat. I'll do a food later, but those 3 things are important.
Thank you for participating. I know moaning in general is something that we are taught to hush and silence depending on where we're at, but there are all types of moaning. There's moaning and excitement, appreciation and admiration when you're lighting that brand new candle from Bath and Body Works.
And there's pain. I work in an ER.
There is moaning and pain, but
we're not going to do that.
We're not talking about that one in this moment, but there is that. And when I looked up the definition originally of moan, it was all negative.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It did not bring up sex. It did not bring up pleasure moaning.
Did it mention ghost?
No.
Oh, what did it mention?
Just groaning in pain. And agony.
I was right then.
So I decided to shift that and just focus on the realities of how people everywhere, all around the world, not just Southern belles who are taught to just cook and clean and raise children, but it is okay to moan out loud, whether you are having sex or you are eating your favorite meal, opening a new bottle of wine, or you just got a promotion at work.
You're right on the food. A lot of people moan over food.
Yeah, I do.
Steak.
Taco Bell.
Oh my gosh. Yes, ribeye. Yes, I will moan over steak. So yeah, throw that in there.
Okay.
If there's any future man wants to ask me out, steak, wine, I can buy my own book.
Speaking of book, while we're on the subject, what is this?
I have no idea. No. That
What
is my
love
book.
affair with an alien in a little town called Roswell?
That is my book that I spent a long time of my life getting there for the book. And it tells how I overcame heartbreak, and my children and a little town Roswell helped me overcome heartbreak, severe heartbreak. And instead of jumping to another relationship, I jumped to the relationship of travel and beautiful small towns. Roswell is one of my favorite small towns in America.
Do you believe in aliens?
I do, and I will firmly say I believe they're fallen angels, not demons. I think I'm one of the few people who believe this. I believe they're fallen angels, the ones that followed Satan down, but they did not want to be demons. They were not evil overall. It says in the Bible that fallen angels married the women of the earth and created giants, which would be like Goliath. And I feel like those are the aliens. I feel like, as some people believe in vampires, fallen angels don't die. They live and live. And it's in the Bible. Angels have, in Ezekiel, these beautiful, Ezekiel saw that wheel with these beautiful, like, you'd have to read Ezekiel, but just great, like chariots. I just really sense that it's probably fallen angels. That's my philosophy or my idea.
Do you go to Roswell because you hope you see aliens?
I do.
Or another reason?
I do, but the aliens I hope to see are other humans dressed as aliens.
Same.
Yes. I do not care about seeing an alien.
I know we've had some pretty fly outfits when we've gotten to Roswell.
Yes. Yes, but it's so much fun. We always go, don't we, on July 4th?
We have gone many times. Where can people find your book?
Okay, Amazon. The name of it, as she said, is My Love Affair with an Alien and a Little Town Called Roswell. You can find it on Amazon.
By who?
By Laura Knighton Curtis. That's my maiden name and my married name. But just type in the whole thing, My Love Affair with an Alien and a Little Town Called Roswell. It is going to come up. And I believe it's $14.95. But what I'm coming up with, because of course you want it autographed, if you buy it, you send me your address. I'm going to get stickers made so I can send my autograph so they can have their very own autograph to put it in their book. William Shatner started it.
How do you find out how they ordered it to get
they will have
address?
They will have to message me and I will send it to them.
So how can people reach out to you?
I have created a Facebook page that's attached to mine. It's called Queen of Tupelo. You can order my book. You can see the link there and get it ordered, and you can message me because I am accepting friend requests for that page. I've had 1,000 people reach out to me that they think I'm awesome, and that's really good feeling.
Speaking of Queen of Tupelo, how did you come up with that name?
It just hit me.
It has something to do with the documentary that just hit Netflix.
Yes, that's true.
You were the only woman that is a main player in the show, which the other players are
men.
My dad, your ex-husband, Uncle Jack, Dad's brother, Everett Dusky, who's in prison.
Yes.
And then there's you, the only girl.
And you forgot about Steve Holland.
Yeah, he's like a side player kind.
He may be the Joker at Tupelo, even though I like him, but he may be the Joker.
You're saying you like Steve Holland?
As a individual.
What do you like about him?
His humor.
Do you know him personally?
I've met him a couple of times. I do know his mother. She died recently, but not to the ricin. She died of older age, but his mother was a good person to me.
How so?
She reached out and talked to me. My best friend, when her mom died, Sadie Holland did the whole funeral. And so we were sitting there at the church and she came and looked in there and I'm like, oh no. And she sits down by me and she
Why
goes,
are you like, oh no?
Because I don't like confrontation, and she was running the whole funeral. And I just thought she might show hatred to me because of how your dad had talked to her in the past. And I also
Do you feel like he had reason to talk to her that way?
She was in the courtroom as the judge, and I think some of it did go down wrong. Yes.
So you think she did Dad wrong, but she always treated you with kindness and the people in your life with kindness.
True, but
not people in your life, but she did good by your friend who passed away, but she did bad by Dad.
But not to give away on my book, she had a reason to put him in jail. And I will tell about that in my book that I'm writing. But she did. The reasons were not put out there in the documentary. And I will discuss that in chapter 4, probably. She's not entirely wrong here.
Is Dad wrong in that situation?
He was really, but not about the David Daniels. David Daniels, he was there for David Daniels and another reason for me personally, and it didn't hit the documentary. I will go more into detail in my story because it's very personal moment for me, an emotional moment. It'll take a lot to write about it, but he was not exactly innocent in all these things. Ryerson, yes, he was innocent that we know of. And I'm sure he is, but I'm saying some things he was not innocent.
We had a lot of questions come in that were specific to you and us as a family for the documentary. One of the first questions was, what are your happiest moments when you and Dad were first married?
I can explain that pretty quick. We both have a lot of the same hobbies. We would go on Saturday to all the little, not thrift stores, but antique stores around town, and we would collect things for the big house that we rented. We found an old refrigerator that we painted red, found an old bumper pool table we reupholstered.
I remember that table. That was cool. It was red.
And then we found a green table, and we'd spend days trying to make it level and never did level. So you'd play pool and it'd lean down. But we loved horror movies, old horror movies. He loves.
Like The Blob.
Oh, yes, The Blob and The Werewolf. I think Cheney, whatever his name is, Cheney's name. But we both like Abbott and Costello meets the Invisible Man. We had a game room that was just amazing, and we loved Halloween. We loved it the most, and we'd throw a big party and dress up, and we'd make the whole yard look like a haunted house. People were actually too scared to trick or treat.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that. I have these memories of Dad actually laying in a coffin.
Yes.
And people would walk by, and he would scare them.
He actually dug a hole like 5 feet deep in the front yard, unfortunately. And then he would jump out with the suit. And Jack would always go, Kevin is always weird about that Halloween. I think he's a vampire. We had an argument about that one time. He said, I really think he's a vampire. He's always slept in the day and went out at night. And so, yeah, he's been rumored to be a vampire.
Oh, interesting. If the Twilight series picks back up.
Your dad may get a job.
When would you say things started to go sideways with your and Dad's relationship?
Right after Kennedy was born.
So about 6 years into the marriage.
Yes. Yeah. We were, and it wasn't Kennedy's fault. I had decided to leave him, and I was done, and I found out I was pregnant with Kennedy. And so I decided to give it another try for a few more years. But we just never had really any happy moments too much after Kennedy.
But you had happy moments before.
Yes. Best year probably of our marriage was after Bram was born. So you loved Bram loved you, and we were a normal family, a natural family. We had a cleaning business. We just watched TV, went places together. We just had a normal, good marriage, but it was just going downhill the whole time I was pregnant with Kennedy.
Did you have a job outside of the cleaning business?
I did. After I had Bram, I was tired of cleaning the houses, and I was really lonely because Kevin would sleep all day and stay up all night, and I'm not that type of person. And
but y'all worked together.
I started doing houses all day, and then he cleaned buildings all night. That's what we started doing. Then I took care of the kids all night. He slept all day. And then I would take them to Mom, and she would watch them while I cleaned houses. By that time, you're in preschool. Jack needed a secretary. His secretary had left. Kevin asked him to let me put in for a job. And I got the job, and I was so happy because I got to see people again. Mm-hmm. So Kevin continued to sleep all day and stay up all night. So we got where I would sleep all night. He would stay up all night. And we had the cleaning business still, so it started at a distance like that.
You're saying y'all started having a distance within y'all's relationship?
Yes.
But he was in support of you working for Jack?
Yes, he was.
Okay. If you had known it was going to create distance between you and Dad, would you have still taken the job with Uncle Jack?
I would have. because I started the job when I first found out I was pregnant with Kennedy, and that was 1996. I had Kennedy in September of 96. So I got the job in February of 1996. And by that time, your dad and I were getting very distant. It was just when Kennedy was born. Your dad went with me for the birth, but his excitement over kids being born was done. Yes. And I tended to coddle Kennedy. I was talking to a friend of mine today that the children that we coddle tend to grow up slower than others, but it's okay. Not everybody blooms at the same time.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's our own responsibility as individuals to become who it is that we want to become.
Yes, and what I was trying to remember, Kevin's mother, I will not say God rest her soul, and she's still alive, but she turned us into Department of Human Service when
You and Dad.
yes, but she said it was me that was the terrible mom. But right when Kennedy was born, he was 2 weeks old. And I thought I was going to lose my 3 children. And I was working for Jake, but I had a nervous breakdown during that time. And the DHS came out to our house 6 weeks. And Pamela, Jack's wife, she would come and sit with me because I had a nervous breakdown. At the end of 6 weeks, Mary, I believe her name was Mary, she said, I apologize. I can see you're a wonderful mom, and I'm going to close the case. And I'm so sorry that we intruded on your family, but I'll never get back the innocence I had before. But
Innocence.
I always will say, when I die, it'll be 10 years earlier because I was in such fear of losing you guys.
Why were you so afraid if you had nothing to hide?
Because Kevin's mother said I was a terrible mom, and sometimes it's easy to get a bum rap. You can ask a lot of people in the world, they'll get a bum rap and they're not really bad, but they'll be found wrong. Look at your dad with the ricin. And then your grandmother would call me even at work and say, oh, I'm sorry, I thought I got the Department of Human Service or DHS, and hang up. And I would just cry at my desk and almost have a heart attack until Jack made her stop. He said, I'll never see you again if you keep this up. But
what did Dad say about it? Because a lot of people in the documentary have reached out to me and said, do we need to take your grandma to Graceland? Because she mentioned she had never been. But I asked Dad yesterday, and he confirmed that she has been multiple times, yes, just not in a while. But just like most things she does, she's manipulative.
Kevin promised her always when he was young that when he became famous, he would buy her Graceland. Or buy her Graceland.
Which is a ridiculous
But
promise.
He always said that at 14 and 15.
Probably because she pushed him into a corner.
And he didn't mean necessarily that Graceland, her Graceland. So she's always said, are you going to buy me my Graceland?
Yeah, it's like she puts an insane amount of pressure on everybody in her life.
And I do not like talking bad about people, but
are we talking bad or are we saying facts?
We're saying facts, but I don't like bringing up bad facts. But I will say, you kids are my life. And Kevin got to a bad point where he constantly would say that if I left him, he would contact DHS to take y'all from me because I was a bad mother. So it's easy to be beat down. And even when that can't be true, it's easy to consider it true and just have anxiety attacks and panic attacks.
But we learn from our parents.
Yes.
We are sponges. At a young age, we're sponges. And then even if we don't want to admit it, we tend to be a lot like our parents at all ages. Mama Harmon wasn't bluffing. She actually did it.
Mm-hmm.
So when Dad started inheriting that narrative, when he was upset with you, he learned that from his mom.
Yeah. And when you say when it started going down south, we had a good relationship most time, but it was before cell phones. She would call him because Jack hired her to be as my assistant, as a secretary. And
Uncle Jack hired his mom to be your assistant?
Yes.
After he said she couldn't call up to Young American?
Well,
that doesn't really make sense.
After he said she could no longer threaten me, not call. Mm-hmm. She could not threaten me with that anymore. And she also called Kennedy a murderer about something. And he also said, you can never call Kennedy a murderer. I'll never speak to you again. So they're just little things, big things. So she would call Kevin when I was on the way home and tell him that I flirted with all the agents and went to lunch, which I did, a business lunch with everybody. We'd all go and sit at a big table at Bar. It got it a little wrong in the documentary. It was actually it was Barnhill Buffet in Tupelo.
Did it get it wrong? Because
They said it was Ishamon.
Well, that was specifically that time with Everett.
But it's actually, no, when that happened, it was Barnhill.
Okay.
But it's okay. It's a restaurant. That doesn't matter what restaurant. But she would call and say, I flirted or this and that. And then he would be so angry. That's when I'd have to grab y'all and get out in the car and run, because he would be happy. I'd call him before I left to say, what are we going to do for supper? And then by the time I got there, he'd be angry because his mom would say things. And then, so you never knew what you were going to meet when you got home.
But who do you think Dad would have been if Mama Harmon did not exist in y'all's life?
A very good person.
Really?
Yeah.
You think Mama Harmon is to blame for all the hard times that you and Dad experienced?
Most of them, yes.
That's huge.
She started most every one of them. So I'm scared of her. That when I got divorced, I was like, thank God I don't have to deal with that lady anymore. That was my happiest moment.
Well, she's my grandma, and I would say the same, because I
I'm
saw
sorry.
firsthand how she treated you, how she treats her own daughter, and she treats her daughter the same way. I told Aunt Tammy yesterday that if someone's treating my mom bad, they're treating me bad. And it should have been a red flag from the get-go when they hated their own daughter and they only are obsessed with men.
She hates Uncle Tony too.
Yeah, she only loves the kids of hers that are male and perform Elvis.
Yes,
It's a weird sickness.
My friend Carrie didn't even know she had two other kids.
It's just strange, and she doesn't acknowledge them.
People would wonder why I did Christmas with you guys, but I didn't trust y'all to go with your dad where your Mama Harmon was. Y'all would want me to go, so I went, and it always turned out to be a disaster. Then I blame myself, but I just didn't want you guys to be there alone with your dad with her. Mm-hmm. So I would go.
Thank you for always looking out for us and not being to us what she is to her children. All right, so Sita Bitter says, what do you want more out of the documentary? What working with Netflix was like, and how everyone treated everyone during filming?
It was a really lot of fun, and you were there. So I think it was one of the most fun things I ever did. Mac and Chapman are now family forever. They are the kindest men. And before I met them, I had gone through this. I haven't dated anybody 6 years, but I had gone through this 5-year thing of being afraid of men. I wasn't afraid of men after I had to go to dinner with Mac and talk about things, or hang out with Chapman and hang out with all the videoers. The fear of men left me, so that I will be forever glad they came around. What I want the most, and I've said all along, is I want my book to sell. I've written a fiction, and that'll be fun, but that book, well, I hope, and I wrote it for women like me that are brokenhearted, and I don't go to another relationship. Don't go from relationship to relationship. It's okay if you find that great guy. Mom was telling me a story today about President Gerald Ford, and saying his mom was in a bad marriage and had him. And she had to go back home because she was abused. Then she met Gerald Ford's father, the stepfather. Anyway, and so she married him, and Gerald Ford's stepfather adopted him. So Gerald Ford took his stepfather's name, and he became president. So it's okay to find a wonderful person after you've had a terrible relationship. Just, it doesn't mean you can't ever find anybody, but for God's sake, do not jump from place to place. When I was broken up with on Valentine's Day 6 years ago with a man that I loved, I cried for 3 months, and then I begged y'all to go to Roswell, and just the peace of traveling filled my heart. And instead of looking for a man to date, I looked for more towns to visit. So I want that book to help somebody that's struggling out there. And it worked, because 2 people have already bought that book off the documentary. Yes. Okay. One's in Paris, one's in Australia. Hey.
It's funny when they're across the world.
So I've got what I wanted, but maybe more will sell.
Speaking of Europe and across the world, Lizzie Swanson from the UK said, Hello from the UK, currently binging and needed to see if people behind the madness existed on Facebook. How on earth have you all survived the chaos and come out of the other side until Netflix decided to create the series? Was it something you tried to put to the back of your minds?
I'd say yes. What would you say?
I'd say yes too. There was no positive day-to-day outcome from thinking about it or talking about it. It was a fun conversation starter and an icebreaker, but other than that, no peace had come from it other than the gratitude that dad was proven to be framed and was not rotting in prison because of it, and the fact that he turned his life around in many ways after it happened.
Yes.
But there was no reason to talk about it.
When your dad kept talking about it a lot, but I guess
Which you
I would
can't blame
too.
him. Yeah, that's his life. That happened to him because he couldn't use his real name for the last 10 years.
Yes. He had to entertain under another name. People kept dangling carrots in front of your dad. It's going to be a documentary.
It's going to be a documentary ever since he got out of jail the
until
first
Mac
time.
and Chapman came, and I thank God they sent them to us. They're amazing people.
They're good people. They're family oriented. So
yes, they are.
You couldn't ask for a better group of people to do what they did, since they literally worked together as a family in life and in business. John Thomas asked, do we have a relationship with our uncle Jack today? I say
me or you?
All of us.
Yeah.
But as far as the whole family goes, we all have a relationship. Yes. If we see him out with a family occasion, he's one of the first people we're talking to. He's always been there for our family as a whole, as far as acknowledging us and that we exist. And I think he's always approached us from where I stood. He never gave us sympathy, and he never was like a father figure in our lives. He was just the one uncle that was always around. Same with Aunt Pamela and Paige and Peyton, because them as a family showed us as a family that they cared about us. Aunt Pamela would get us Christmas presents every year. Mm-hmm. Uncle Jack would show up at graduation. It was never awkward. It was just, we knew that there were awkward tensions between our families because of Dad, you and Uncle Jack had created. But in reality, there was not that awkwardness.
Yeah. Jack reached out to me a week before it came out, and he said, are you excited? And I said, I am, about the documentary. I thought he did amazing. Somebody said on the news we were the voice of reason with the spark of Southern, but I thought he was spot on. We worked together till 14 years ago. I'm going to say maybe 16 years ago when he retired. I was his vice president of his company. So we worked together for a while after that. Then the Ryerson hit, and then he reached out. So you were
vice president of United American?
I was vice president of Leads to You, which was one of his offices.
Which is where the secretary stuff came into play.
Actually, no, the secretary was because I was secretary of United American, and your papa, Ed Harmon, gave me that nickname.
Oh, okay.
And because I liked to dress sexy.
The ladies.
Yes, and he liked, I dressed sexy, and he came up with that name, and I was like, yeah.
But do you think you dressed sexy? Because even in the documentary, you were wearing just a t-shirt. Maybe you were just beautiful.
Short skirts.
And men were very creepy.
Yeah. No, skirts above my knees. That's all. Not to my yin-yang. Right to the knee, and some low cut, which I had a lot of cleavage, and I say not if you haven't flaunted,
what
but
age did you get your boobs?
13.
And what size were they at 13?
D.
What size were they at 16?
Like triple D.
Do you feel comfortable talking about this?
I'm fine.
Because I don't think I've ever achieved what you had at 13. Boob wise, and you've since had a breast reduction.
Yes, I have.
And your boobs are still always going to be bigger than mine. And it's just
I'm now like a D, I guess, or a C. I'm a large
big C. But it's just, you should be proud of it. It is not you and your short skirts' fault when people are disrespectful for you, when people are catcalling you, when older men think it is their objective to lick their lips at you and hit on you and flirt with you and make you feel uncomfortable. That's just how those people are.
Now, I was totally professional.
Because you've been portrayed as a very flirtatious married woman.
And that was Brandon made the comment, I dress provocative. And that
Were
was.
you married when you worked at Leeds?
No.
Okay,
no.
then we're not talking about that.
But
we're
I'm
talking about
talking.
you were portrayed as a married, flirty, cheating wife. So what do you have to say? You're admitting that you dressed sexual.
You do want to know where I got most of those clothes?
But is that fair to say you dressed sexual? I don't think so either.
So one day we had our house burned, and I came in as a secretary. I was the secretary, and I was dressed like a slob. And Jack's, oh, you can't dress like that. I said, I have no clothes. They all burned.
Oh my.
And he called Pamela, and Pamela had always given me clothes. Pamela has been nothing but good to me.
Oh yeah, she's a hero.
So he called Pamela and said, I'm sending Laura over. Do you have some clothes? So she went through all her gorgeous clothes. 9 times out of 10, what I wore that I looked sexy in, she gave that to me.
Which they were wealthy.
Just, I have,
nice, yes,
and I had bigger breasts. It's hard when you're a G to not dress a little sexy. You could dress in a turtleneck.
And it's still going to look provocative.
Yes. So I'm not to blame for that. But Pamela, she gave me the clothes. But she would buy the cutest things in Jamaica, and she'd always bring me home a dress from Hawaii. Well, it was long. I cut it off immediately to my knees. But I was going to say one Christmas, and it was just a few Christmases ago, maybe 5, and Kennedy and Bram were having some issues. But Pamela invited them both, and we went to their house. And when we got there, Pamela hugged me and said, I've missed you so much. And then she said, what's going on with Bram and Kennedy? They're not talking much. And I said, they're having some issues. She goes, I'm going to straighten that out. And so she talked, and she did all she could to help.
Let's reel back. So the documentary happened.
Yeah.
You were portrayed as this flirtatious wife that slept with her husband's brother. Let's focus on that, because that's what a lot of people see you as that don't know you, because they only can go off Netflix. Thankfully, a lot of people, at least the ones we're hearing from, saw you. Or at least the people that have been reaching out to us, most of them, thankfully, are the ones that have known you. They know that you're a saint, that you gave everything you had for your children and your husband, even though he may not see it that way, because when you stay with someone who is not mentally stable or is consumed with a passion that takes them away from their family, that's not easy. But you were flirtatious, and you did admit on camera multiple times that you crossed the line with Uncle Jack. And so before you start, because you do need to say everything you want to say, but that is what everyone saw and heard. So anyone who has a qualm with whatever happened, they don't know what happened. They just saw that you admitted something happened. And our Aunt Pamela and their children were not a part of the documentary. And so some people were concerned about their feelings. But first off, do you have any problems with Aunt Pamela or their children?
I do not.
And you only have great things to say about them?
Yes.
Same. I only have amazing things to say about that family as a whole, because
they were cousins.
They were our cousins, but they were like our guardian angels on earth, because I remember at my lowest time when I was really caught up in not having nice clothes to wear to school and wanting to be like the popular kids, especially amidst the drama that I went home to all the time. Aunt Pamela took me on a shopping spree to Buckle, and that was the first time I'd ever set foot in Buckle. And this place, I would not recommend them because they're aggressive. I swear, I walked in the dressing room, and every 2 seconds they were throwing over more clothes. So we walked out of there. I'm sure she spent $1,000.
She wanted to do it.
I'm grateful.
And I'm glad she wanted to do it.
I've never forgotten that. And I still have some of those clothes 15 years later, because they were beautiful clothes, and none of that would have happened without her. And for her, it might have just been a swipe of a card, because our circumstances were different. That didn't mean that I loved you any less or I thought any less of you. It was just thanks to her and her family, I was able to experience something that I never would have been able to experience otherwise. And I only have good things to say about that family. But then there's my mom and my uncle, who there always has been hell to pay because of how Dad feared that you and Jack had something going on, and you admitted on national television that you crossed the line with him. And I think everyone is just going to keep asking until there's a little bit of explanation behind that. I think you worded it very well. You said your therapist thought you fell in love with him because of the role he was able to play in all of our lives as a hero, as a rock.
That we didn't have.
Because every woman does want that male figure, that rock. And I think it's no surprise that us being Southerners, Southern belles, we are brainwashed to think that we have to have a man that saves us, especially 25 years ago. And you were going home and knocked down and told that you were worthless, and you went to work, and the person that was in charge of your paycheck, a good boss compliments his good employees.
Oh.
And so when you were being told that you're worthless at home, but you go to work and you're being told that you're worth something, maybe lines get crossed, or maybe ideas get crossed. But to say all of that, what do you have to say when the people are wondering, why did you say you crossed the line with Dad's brother?
And again, I want to save some for my book, which the book will have a lot
F
more.
the book, Mom. This is today. Mom,
Hey.
people are not, the world isn't going to see this.
Just kidding.
I'm your daughter. You brought me into this.
Hey.
It's your fault that I've endured what I've endured. So tell me what I want to know. Talk to the people.
The inquiring minds like you want to know. And
We
you don't even know
deserve-
what that means.
I do know what inquiring minds mean.
Okay.
We
No,
need to
I
know-
meant Inquirer. The magazine is called The Inquirer, and it goes because
Oh.
inquiring minds want to know. So,
We need to know
Okay.
now. Tell people what
Well-
they need to hear so they want to even buy a book you write.
Matt kept asking me to put something, to say something. We taught 17 hours, and he was like, say this, say that. And he said, what can you say? And I said, I crossed the line a few times, but not like Jack. I said that several times, and things did get reworded throughout. Maybe not reworded, but
Chopped up.
yes, thank you. But
You're also saying Mac and Chapwise with family. So you're not saying that they maliciously chopped
they
up
did not.
things
They
to
wanted me to
create a false story,
Right.
because it also sounds like that's what you're saying right now.
No, there's a couple things like pencil thin mustache. I really wasn't talking about your dad. I was talking about Jimmy Buffett, and it kind of got thrown in.
Well,
sometimes.
okay, but I think that might be an artistic perspective
Yes.
of, you were saying this, you've suppressed the fact that you maybe found Dad incredibly sexy when you jumped his bones night one.
Ah,
But because of the trauma there, you may not want to say he was sexy, but you said that about someone else with the same description of who Dad looked
Yeah.
like when y'all met.
yes,
So
they
maybe-
did a great job.
and that is their artistic
Yeah.
objective. So
All
just
right,
so
so
you know,
we'll go back to this.
Okay.
Yes. And I will say, I could say I crossed the line with Jack. I crossed the line several times emotionally. I can tell you that emotionally.
but were you emotionally stable for most of our
No.
childhood?
No, no, I wouldn't want to say it that way. I was a survivor, just hanging on, feeding you guys, taking you to McDonald's, getting you to mom's, working.
But that can be emotionally strong and a survivor, a fighter, but stability. Would you define our life as simply stable?
No, but I
The way.
tried to give the best way I could to you guys, but I've failed. I did the best I could.
You don't fail if you're trying.
Emotionally, I did cross line, but that will be what's in my book too. But with Jack, I was starving, and I would literally
Starving
be
for-
food. Yes, because we were at a time, and Kevin had gone to Tony's to live, and we were living on one pack of hot dogs a week, one pack that I would cut up that one, and each one of you would get a half of one with barbecue sauce. And I chose not to eat because I didn't want to take it from you guys. And I didn't get breakfast and I didn't get lunch. I lost down to 89 pounds during that time. And somebody joked, Randy Bird, one of our agents, he said, "How are you so skinny?" And I said, "Try not eating," laughing. He goes, "That's hilarious."
But you were serious.
Yes,
How did that feel? How did that feel to make a joke that was painful and someone so quickly just
he
take
didn't
it as
know.
No, he didn't. But that could also maybe have been a cry for help, because hunger isn't fun. Were you also hoping someone would hear between the lines?
Not really. He just asked how do I stay so slim?
Wasn't it an eating disorder?
No, there was no food to eat. And Jack would go to lunch, and he knew when we were broke, because he'd say, "Aren't you going to go eat lunch?" And I said, "No, I just need to finish up some stuff." And I didn't go to lunch because I didn't have gas money to waste to
And you
even.
didn't confide in Jack.
No.
And you were
No,
in
but
these terrible times.
he would see me sitting there from 8 to 5 and no food. So he would just sometimes come in and goes, look, he said, they threw an extra hamburger in my bag. He goes, here you go. And he'd walk away and I'm like, blah, 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 blah.
Not because he was flirting
No.
or ever wanted anything in return.
No.
Just because he cared.
Yes. And then I'd get home and of course your dad would be gone, but then he'd come back and then he'd just harass and beat me down. But it's
How
a
did
lot.
you feel? Did you allow that come and go, that back and forth?
No, I was afraid.
You gave him the reins, full control.
We were married during that time, and I begged your Uncle Tony to take him to his house, and he did. And Uncle Tony kept him there at the apartment for a long time. And then they come back one day, and Tony's like, I'm sorry. He just insisted on getting the car and going. And I didn't know he was coming. I will say the Curtis family are the most wonderful people in this world, from Cousin Ricky to every Curtis family I've met, except one that seems to be attacking me, and I can't remember her name.
Would you say that about Dad at times too, though? When Dad is at his best?
Yes.
When he's not being manipulated by his mom and accused of life in prison crimes, that he's a wonderful breath of fresh air.
People ask me all the time, and you've asked me, and when you've described about he was bad day after day on your bad times, he wasn't, because people would say, why the hell did you not get out? He would go a month of being the kindest individual. Then 5 days, he'd be a nightmare.
Was it always alcohol induced?
Yes. Yes. I firmly believe he needed, when in the early days, he was on lithium and he was amazing and he didn't like it. And we had a therapist and we went every week and we had the most wonderful marriage and wonderful family. And right before Kennedy was born, his therapist quit and went to work with his dad, and we got a new one. And the new guy said, there's nothing wrong with you. You have a business and kids. And of course, his other therapist said, you're a poster child for lithium. You have a business. You're a good father. You're everything. The new therapist said, I'm taking off your lithium because it's obvious you don't need it. It was a mental regional health 3. And I said, you just signed our divorce certificate because I will not go back to live with this man.
Because when he wasn't taking care of his mental health with maybe these other substances, what happened?
Violent, crazy, spit in your face, crazy, bug-eyed, insane, where you're terrified. A lot of people have referred to him, or a few, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, most wonderful, it's some friends, most wonderful person you ever meet, and then most horrible person you ever meet.
And since you've experienced both, do you wish ill on him?
No. I'm glad no. Did I lie on that? No, I'm glad
you're
he's
still
happy.
recovering from the pain that he has caused, but ultimately you know that he's dealing with this mental health battle that is not fair to anybody, I feel like.
True.
And you maybe see him in some of your children, and you wouldn't want your children to be quickly written off.
Yeah. I see some traits sometimes in a couple of kids, and it makes me worried. Your dad was I don't consider him overly good looking now because of what I've been through, but he was a very good looking man and funny. And he and I both had good personalities. You were voted best personality or most unique in high school. And so was Brown, and Kennedy was class president, and Gable is just a wonderful kid. So our kids, due to me and your dad's quirky personality, are what you guys are.
We all make a name for ourselves.
And
That's
I have
true.
wonderful dad. So I feel like with my dad and your dad and me, personally, you couldn't go wrong with a lot of DNA.
So Dad has a lot of good traits.
Yes.
Because I think with all the bad that has happened within our lives, just like today, if someone insults us and 17 other people compliment us, for some reason we'll go to bed replaying that negative, hateful comment. And you've recently said that you are trying to learn how to focus on the roses instead of the tomatoes thrown at you. 2 tomatoes thrown at you is just easier to focus on than the 17 roses you were given.
You might have dropped the roses while you're wiping off the tomato juice. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's important just for everyone to remember, every family, but especially our family who has so much public bad. I have coworkers and they say, well, your parents really do a lot for each other because you let dad live in your camper, and then dad gave money towards your floors to get redone, and dad's the first person to give us that random thing that we want or need. Like for me, it was a mattress after a bed bug infestation. For Kennedy, it was a camper to live in with his wife, and for Bram, it's a guitar probably any day now because Bram wants to learn guitar. That is who Dad is.
I think he buys more waxes from Bram than anybody out there.
If you were giving Dad's eulogy tomorrow, what's a few things you would say?
Reminds me of Sonny and Cher. I'm going to go Sonny and Cher because she gave his eulogy.
And they were divorced, right?
Yes, it was amazing.
They knew each other probably deeper than anyone else.
Oh my gosh, yes. She said that when he got to heaven,
you don't get divorced and you don't know each other.
No. But she said she knows now. He always took care of her even after they divorced. He was always there. And after, when he died, she knows now she has a guardian angel. With your dad, I would say, first off, I'd have 3 days to prepare for the eulogy. But secondly,
just the top 3 things that you would want to focus on, because from your shoes and you going through the abuse and the being on the front lines of the hardships over the vulnerable years, it would be harder for you to focus on the good rather than everyone else, especially all the people fangirling and fanboying right now over him. Right now, Dad's going to have more people in his corner than ever, but you've been in his corner since before any of us kids were born. So
I guess what I could say is the first day I met him, believe it or not, I met him, we went out a week later. He came over and our cat Bogey, my cat Bogey, was sitting there with a box of sand as a litter box and had one egg. And it's because I was hungry and there was one beer sitting in the fridge and some flour. And so that was all I had to eat on. But Kevin's, oh my gosh, Bogey doesn't got the right food. So the next night, I got home from work and your dad was sitting on the steps with a bag of stuff from a litter box to litter to all this grand food. Yes, waiting because, of course, I locked my door and it was duplex. But he was sitting there with all these toys for Bogey. And when I got in, that kind of made up my mind what kind of person he was then. That he had all these things for Bogey. He has always loved animals.
People keep asking me, did he shoot the elephant? And the first thing I say is, they connected the same car description that whoever they saw shoot the elephant as his. And you've mentioned he was going crazy that week. But I always say Dad loves animals too much to shoot one. And
I was thinking today with Everett, I thought maybe he did it. Then I thought no, because Everett loves animals.
You think Steve Holland did it?
Or
his mom, because she could have admitted herself.
Sadie Holland would have never done that. But I don't know who did it. I would like to know.
Someone did it.
Yeah, you have got some good in you if you love animals. But I would say that Kevin loves animals. He is the cat whisperer. And to this day, if I need $100 for a phone bill, I know I can ask him. And I'm going to have to pay him back and send him money on Wednesday, but he's going to, if it concerns you guys, like the phone bill, he's going to be the first to help. Or he's just that way. Now, he may mention it 3 days later and over, but he is a caring person. And I hate to say it, but if he had a different mother, I believe he'd been a wonderful individual. And that's just all I can say.
Are y'all friends?
Me and Kevin? Yeah. We've learned.
It's messy.
Huh?
Is it messy?
It is, but more than friends, we are business partners.
Co-parents.
Yes, but I call it, we are business partners for 4 wonderful children. And that's what we are. And when we look and we're sitting in a room and I invite him over for Christmas dinner, I can look at him. I really don't remember being married to him. I don't remember any of that, but I remember that DNA and me, we created the most 4 wonderful kids imaginable. And y'all would not be you if I met some simple Joe Smo out there. Kevin's quirky, I'm quirky, and we created 4 wonderful children. So
we are all quirky.
Instead of co-parents, I consider us business partners for children. So
I like that. We're going to pause. I'm going to make sure we're still recording.
Oh my gosh. If we're not, I'm going home.
This is still recording. So someone asked an interesting question. Katie Bruce said, how do you think your lives would have been if your dad never opened the freezer? So you've up until this point, you said that you believe his mother is to blame for his worst qualities.
Yes.
Who he was before that gig and opening the fridge and coming home and telling you, and after?
I don't know. Well, yes, the craziness would have not been part of it. It wouldn't have.
The
but
craziness, you mean like?
The body parts would not have been part of it. But Kevin was very unreliable on job-wise, and he had not had a job. Oh, I know he went through a bout of cat scratch fever, and he couldn't work for a while. But
which was valid.
Yes. Oh, yeah. He almost died. But he got the job, and he tended to not stay a long time at a job. But he did love it. He really loved what he did, loved it. And he was the best at what he did. Kevin is excitable and is a snoop. When he said he opened that freezer looking for a Dr. Pepper or a fridge, I said, you did not look for a Dr. Pepper. You were snooping. And that's just him. So that's his type of personality. If there had been no heads, then he probably just would have kept working. And he did enjoy it. So it's a hard question. But he's not a person that wants to go 8 to 5 and work. Do you remember in the documentary? And I said it was wonderful. We were living the dream. He was working, and he goes, "Pleading suck effing sucks." And I'm like going, and we were a family. And he's going, it was hard work. I and he are two totally different people. So I don't know. I think maybe if he'd been a regular Joe Smo, we would have parted our ways.
When you grew up in a house where your father paid all the bills by choice and your mom got the option of working or staying at home, and then dad grew up not having a full-time dad figure from the little bit that he admits, and he only had his mom to count on. I don't know really where they got their money. Maybe his dad still sent money.
His dad always paid the bills.
He got that weird perspective of all of his needs were met financial wise, but his mom didn't have to work to provide.
In all fairness, his dad paid the house payment and gave them $1,000 a month back in the 70s. So his dad, Kevin's dad, is a wonderful man.
But cheated on his wife, which is why they weren't together.
True. But
so you can't say he was just wonderful.
But he did take care of them and provide for them. He did.
And that's good.
And he took Kevin on Disney World with his other new children that they eventually had. He constantly
was a family
with
man.
Them. Yes.
Or wanted to be.
Yes.
From my understanding, his ex-wife, dad's mom, did not allow him in the picture.
I will say this. If Kevin, in my opinion, had stayed on lithium, we'd probably be married to this day. We enjoyed life. We had a lot of things in common. I had no reason to divorce. I don't think he and I were ever really in love with each other. We got pregnant quickly, got married, and he was very and crazy about somebody else. And I was still overcoming being in love with somebody else. But I was like, I wanted children, I wanted a picket fence, and I wanted to be married. So there would have been no reason for me to leave. If he had been a regular Joe Smo, I would have stayed married. But he didn't give me any stability anywhere in any situation.
Except foot rubs.
Oh, and I'm not about feet. I'm not. And unfortunately, I don't like the feet being licked and all that. I'm sorry.
I think enjoyment from that would come from someone who is
somebody I'm in love with.
Not even in love with. Mutually, that you're just in the moment, you want to get lost with them. Now, foot rubs.
Yes, foot rubs are awesome.
They heal pain all throughout your body.
Yeah, foot rubs are awesome, and I'll pay $100 for anybody to get foot rubs like that.
Yes, it's worth it.
That's a different thing, yes.
What are some favorite memories from our childhood? List 2.
Shouldn't you mention that?
I can always talk about this later. I don't only have you and your book writing famous journey that you will be on soon. So I don't know how long I'll get to talk to you.
Are you talking about post-dad?
What are 2 of your favorite memories when you and Dad were married and we kids were in the house?
Do I have to list 2?
You were just saying for a month straight or so, Dad would be great. Halloween, breakfast. You didn't cook or clean. We would have died if it was up to you feeding or cleaning our house. You did work. We would have died without you as well.
Halloween, yes. St. Luke every year had a fall festival.
That's right. Dad was there, wasn't he?
It was fall festival, yes. Every year we went to fall festival and you dressed as a little skunk or a cat. I can't remember which one was. Thank you. But anyway, we went every year.
Why did Dad go to those but not church?
Because it was fall festival. We love Halloween and we do it so they'd see him every year there. But we went every year from the time you were born till Gable was born. We have a picture of you holding him and you're a genie. Each one of my kids usually were born, especially Bram and Kendi were born the Halloween week. Bram and Gable were born Halloween week. That was one. Second one.
Food. Do you remember Dad cooking good meals?
That's it. I do know my fondest memories with your dad was watching Saturday Night Live, and y'all would be sitting there too, but we loved watching Saturday night TV, and y'all would have your toys, and Saturday Night Live was just our thing. We never were strict about y'all making go to bed at a certain time. We'd eat caramel popcorn. I'd say that might have been your favorite.
Did Dad make it?
Yeah, we would have the caramel popcorn. It's just the Act bag, and back then you could put caramel in it and did it in the microwave. And me, you, and him would sit there and watch some movie. You and him would usually watch a horror movie, and I'd just squawk. But anyway, we would try to watch Barney or something. And it went on with the others, but that was probably the favorite.
One of my fondest memories is on Christmas when I have these visions of Dad or you or y'all would make these cardboard
That was
forts.
1 year. That was 1 year. And your dad worked really hard on that and did all these things. And we moved it upstairs to the attic. And you and Bram had so much fun climbing through all the maze. And I think we actually had some money during that time. But y'all had the blast because he worked on it for a while.
Was he on lithium at that time?
He was. Yes, he was.
Okay.
And there's a lot of bad raps about lithium now. So I'm not getting
that wouldn't be an all fix all is what you're admitting.
Lithium worked for him.
At the time. Who knows what long-term lithium.
It worked 3 years now. When you're on lithium, you have to have a liver test every 2 to 3 months.
So he may not be here today.
But and it did start. It's a high salt intake. It was always fine, but lithium is not the drug of choice now. It's still out there. The other things along the year he decided to try here and there when he wanted the marriage to work and it didn't work.
But maybe the focal point is not necessarily that lithium fixed him or helped him or would be the reason y'all would still be married today. It was more so when Dad was actively working on his mental health.
Yeah.
Things were better.
Yes.
Because you can work on your mental health and not need a drug. But when you're hyper aware of saying, okay, I struggle with these things. I have a tendency to get angry at this, or I'm have a problem with alcohol, or when I get drunk, if I have 3 too many, this is how I become, and this is how I treat people I care about. All of that is mental health. From what I remember, Dad did not focus on mental health.
No. He was so proud when that new therapist said, you are not bipolar. And he was like, yay. And then he proceeded to be bipolar.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying he was, but he proceeded to be a little bit something.
Emily Lee says, what was your mom's experience the day your dad was arrested and the days following?
That was very interesting. I saw that question and I wanted to answer. I was sitting at home and with Gable, and he was playing with the playmate, and I got this call, and I was expecting Kevin to bring the backpack because I left Gable's backpack at Kevin's the night before.
Mm-hmm.
And
his dad was on his way to cook dinner.
Yes. And me and Gable were going to Awana's. But he said, hey, since I'm going, I'll bring some food and throw it on for that. Because Gable had to go to school all day with no backpack. And I told the teachers, wear the backpack tomorrow. And the reason we were in Corinth is because...
Bet you had a good excuse the next day.
Oh, my gosh. That's the funny part. But anyway, Kennedy was in a play. So that's why we were going to Corinth every night and why Kevin was watching Gable, because I was having to take Kennedy to be in a CTA play, which is a Corinth theater ours. So I was sitting there and the phone rang. And this man said, are you Laura Curtis? And I said, yes. It was a weird number, 901 or something. And he said, Kevin is supposed to be en route to your house, but he's not going to make it. And I went, okay. They said, this is the FBI. And I was like, because Kevin used to like to pretend he was the FBI. He did. Kevin a couple times pretended he was the FBI.
True. He had an FBI shirt.
So I was like that. And so he said, so anyway, we'll be coming by to question you. And I'm like, okay. So I got the phone.
I thought it was a joke.
Yes, it was Jared Toll's mother I was sitting next to, me and Gable and our little girl. I said, that's the funniest thing. I said, I just got this prank call that the FBI is coming to the house and Kevin's been arrested. She goes, that's funny. And then she had the news on in there. And then I thought, wait a minute. They said en route, and nobody says en route but the FBI. That's just what they say. And that's because now probably, but I was in school for criminal justice with this emphasis on homeland security.
True.
So I was doing a lot of studying. But so I went.
And something ate at your gut was saying.
Yes. And about that time, Jack called and said,
Jack told him where to find
yeah,
that.
and I had never heard that
until the documentary.
Yeah,
right?
and I don't
how
believe
they met
it.
at Cracker Barrel.
I don't believe it.
You don't believe
No,
it? Jack admitted to it.
Yeah, I
you were
don't
just
believe
talking
it.
how amazing Jack did,
Well,
how honest and spot on.
because he called me and acted like he didn't know anything.
You think he called you to find out where Dad was?
No, he called and he said, Laura, he said.
At the time, he probably didn't want to admit that he just sold
You know,
out
in
his
all
brother
fairness, he might have called me from behind the Cracker Barrel because he.
around all the FBI agents.
Because he said, Laura, he said, I think Kevin's being accused of rice and something. And I never knew he was behind Cracker Barrel.
But Jack, before you got that FBI prank call,
I got it afterward.
Yeah, I know. Before you got that call, Jack had already called you saying, I think Kevin's being accused of trying to kill the president.
So the FBI called, then a few months later it was Jack.
Okay.
So I don't know the time frame. I would just have
But
to
you got a call from the FBI and you thought it was a prank. You got a weird call from Jack saying he thinks Dad's being accused.
Yeah.
But then what else did you and Jack say?
Oh, Jack said about that time, he goes, oh my God, it's on the news that Kevin's being arrested at that same time.
For trying to kill Obama.
And he goes,
the Boston bombing.
Yes. The Boston bombings came later after.
No, it came the same night.
Well,
or the
because
next day.
I told them we'd been to Boston and
which was stupid.
I'm sorry.
Why would you bring that up?
Because they asked me a lot of things. It was a year before.
Yeah, why would you talk about it?
I did try to turn him in for the elephant for the money, but that was just another situation. Because, why not?
Continue.
It's in the book.
All right.
Okay.
So that was your experience.
I got to tell you that though, right quick, because and all that. Well, then Jack goes, "Oh my God, I got to go. I got to get to my mother," which is true. And then Jason Martin called me and said,
"Youth pastor,
what can I do?" Our youth pastor said,
"Why did he call you? Because he saw the news."
He saw it, and he said, "What can I do?" And I said, "Can you call Madison? And can you call and take care of her because I can't call her. I've got to go meet with the FBI." And he said, "I will handle Madison." And so he was calling, trying to find you. So Jason,
he was the one that called me.
That meant the world to me.
I was in a parking lot.
That's it. I don't know any of the stuff. It was so crazy.
I don't think we've ever talked about it.
No.
But this is a good wine. No, I was in a parking lot about to go out to dinner with my friends. And I get a call from Jason Martin. And I think, that's weird. Excuse me, everyone. My youth pastor is calling me. And I answer it. And he just says, "Hey, your dad's been arrested for supposedly trying to kill the president with ricin, and your mom can't call you because she's tied up with the FBI." So very factual. And yeah, I just didn't want you to find out from the news. And I just said, "Okay, I knew he was crazy. Thanks, bye." And that's it. And then I go out to dinner like everything's normal. My friends are aware. One of my friends worked with the marshals in Jackson as an intern or something. So when I went back to my friends and I let them know, I just got this really weird call. That friend of mine said, "Yeah, we heard about that hours ago."
And he couldn't tell you.
And I knew that it was your dad, but I wasn't allowed to say anything. Which it pretty much tainted our relationship from then on out. It was never the same after that. At first, I did say, I knew my dad was crazy, but I just don't act well under pressure. But it didn't sit right with me throughout the evening because it just made me realize what a big deal that would be if he actually did this.
Yeah.
And long story short, when I went to the hearings in Oxford, in the first 30 seconds sitting there seeing Dad in person. It was, even if I wanted him to do it, because it would take him away at a time when he was not physically.
Oh, I was glad he was in jail.
Yeah, he was physically evil to us as a family because he had lost
He was crazy.
part of himself. But there was something different where it wasn't just that simple of, okay, maybe he can go away for a while and he won't cause harm, or maybe he did do that. No, it was a overwhelming feeling of, he didn't do this, and there's some greater power out there that is trying to put him away. And we know what happens to people that get put away for things they didn't do. They get killed in prison. They get silenced. My narrative and my relationship towards my dad changed at that point, where I decided that, like my dad, justice is important, and if he didn't do this, maybe he deserves to be in jail for some other things, but not this. And we need to talk about that. And then he eventually got out, thank God. And he really did change, I would say, as a person. He changed as a person after that.
Yeah.
And in the documentary, you see, and people want to say that this documentary was all for show and it was people just exploding their personalities for views. No, everyone was, in my opinion, genuine, transparent. The way Dad said, he silenced himself once he realized that he was possibly going away forever, and they had finally got him, even though it wasn't something that he might have actually done. He knew that he was not in control, and he was humbled.
Yeah.
And humbled Dad post the ricin scandal.
Oh, yeah.
He was like the dad that we had been waiting for.
Yes. He was nutty as a fruitcake before they arrested him. I mean, he was just nutty and scary.
Dad's always talked about getting threats and being stalked and being harassed, having people befriend him, and then he finds out that they're a part of this clan or this group. He kept solving these situations that only he was seeing, and it was making him crazy.
My coworkers, I have a coworker named Coral. She said, I felt sorry for him. But Coral said, I saw that the police were stalking him. She said, so I feel sorry for him. She said, it made me realize he wasn't crazy on that. Things were happening. Why are these people coming by? And I said, yeah, but that, I said, yes, not but on that. But on the documentary, when I said, he said helicopters are coming over, and Jack was saying it was crazy, and white vans. Then I said, was it crazy? Are you paranoid when there really was a white van sitting out there for 2 days? Because the FBI later said, and the white van was out there. They said it if you listen closely. So was he being paranoid when a white van really was down the road listening? The FBI arrested him. So are you being paranoid?
And I heard my phones be tapped.
Yeah.
My phone's in college, hours away. My phone was tapped.
You're not really paranoid if something really does happen.
Yeah, and it makes sense when you go a little insane from being stalked by higher powers that are supposed to protect you.
I'm a firm believer in therapy. I've been so many years.
But you have not.
I've been recently.
You've been
and I've been
once or twice in the last 7 years.
But
I will not have my listeners manipulated by your toxic routine of therapy where you go say, blah, 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 this is what I'm dealing with.
No.
And then you move on.
In all fairness, when I met your dad.
What's your relationship with therapy?
When I met your dad and then we got married, it was court ordered for him to see a therapist. That's why I believe in therapy. Okay. It was court ordered from the judge said he had to do it. Family therapy, and he had to have a job or he was going back to jail. That was the rules.
Were y'all married?
We were married, and I was 6 months pregnant. Or no, 4 months pregnant. But I was out there. So anyways, we went to Chicago for him to go to jail for 5 years. He was going to jail. That was done deal.
Did you know that when you had sex with him?
No. First off, I was wasting time because I was in love with somebody else and couldn't have that person. And there's a saying back then, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with.
Okay.
That's an old saying.
So you and Dad both were madly in love with
other people
before y'all met. So it's not because y'all weren't good enough for each other. Y'all just had already fallen in love.
Yes.
Then you and Dad meet. You're both sad.
Yes.
You have sex.
Yeah.
You get pregnant with me.
Yes.
And you were prepared to do it all on your own.
Yes. I wanted to, actually.
Said, no, I want to be involved. But y'all were brutally honest with one another, saying that I love this person, I love that person. But then it started coming out, if you want a future with this person or going to do that, he had court hearings. And this
He
is what
told
it
me
was
from
about.
day one, I never intended to get pregnant. I never intended to get married.
He told you that.
Yeah, he told me on the first date
I
everything. I knew.
Oh, he told you on the first date what he had just gone.
Yes,
so he was always super crazy
10 hours. I met him on the anniversary of my grandfather's death. I was out
February
at Bogart's.
14th.
It was actually, yes, well, I'm sorry, but it was February the 15th because I went to my sister's to hang with her on February the 14th. I came home, and on February the 15th, a friend of mine said, come out to Bogart's because you're sad. And I went out and I met your dad. And
but he told you day one all the hell he had just gone through.
Yes, because we talked.
So it's your fault.
Oh, yeah.
That you got with this person that was obviously mentally vulnerable.
I could tell. Yeah,
was that attractive to you that he was?
It was
weak?
very cute, but it wasn't. I'm just like, hey, first off, I took his driver's license, left it on the counter because I had a friend, Bob Ballard, that always I'd say when I'm going out with a new guy, I'm making him leave his driver's license there because if I come up missing, it's here. It was just, I had a routine.
Yes, but if a man tells you, I just tried to kill myself.
Oh, but that was on our date. That was during the date.
He told you he tried to kill himself in front of a girl that he loved, and he still loved her, and you continue to date him.
Maybe he said it 2 weeks later. I don't know. The first date, we talked about our grandparents all night long. And then it matters. 32 years ago, our first date was Pizza Hut. We talked all night. We sat there 4 hours at Pizza Hut. Then we went.
Did he work there at the time?
No, he got a job after that. And we talked about his grandmother, my grandfather. So that was our first date. Now, the first night he called me to ask me out for a date, which was the night before we went out. We talked 7 hours on that night. He called me at 9:00. We talked to 2:30 in the morning.
So you think y'all were always meant to be friends, but not necessarily
Yes, that's what
lovers,
I've always said.
Although you wouldn't trade your children for anything.
I was just, and I wasn't really in love, but I was so excited when I found out I was pregnant with you. I was 28. Most women always think if they hadn't been pregnant by 25 or 22, which I was a virgin to 25, you're thinking, I may never have a child. That's what most women tend to think. They do.
That's what I think at 32. But that's another good point. People want to be quick. The haters out there want to call you a whore and just call it that. Like, she's a whore. It's that simple. But you didn't have sex for the first time until you were 25.
And it was with the guy I was in love with. And then when he dumped me, and he was older, I was in love. I was always a hero person, and he just thought he'd go out and have some hot sex, and he realizes this girl loves me, and we'd been friends for 3 years before that. So it wasn't like he was just like, I picked up from the bar. I was in love with this guy. And when he finally came over, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so in love with this guy. And then when he realized that, heck, this girl's in love with me, I better get away. Now I'm able to see that when I'm 58 or 59. But back then I was like, what'd I do to lose him? I was 25 and a virgin. What did I know? But after that, I didn't care. I slept with a few guys. I didn't care. My life was over. I wanted to die. I would sit out in the rain hoping I'd get pneumonia and die because I wasn't going to kill myself. So I'd sit out in the rain hoping I'd die. True story. I left a note in my drawer. If I die, take this to this guy that I loved you forever. You're stupid. You're stupid when you're young. And then one day my dad came over to help me something, found that note in the drawer. I was so embarrassed because Dad always goes running out when he sees something. We don't speak in our family. But I was like, oh my gosh.
Y'all, the night inside. The Curtis side says.
Curtis side says it all.
And I'm conflicted because I'm a Knighton and a Curtis. And so I feel like I'm a constant tornado within my own body. Okay, next question. A, whose room was Laura's shoes in?
That is my book. I'm sorry, girl.
what did they leave out from filming?
No,
I have a video of you telling me where your shoes were. So I can use that whenever I want.
I can. I can use that whenever I want to tell my book. Do not watch her moan with me, whatever. That my book gets first. But that is a very interesting, long chapter about where my shoes were.
Did you ever have sex with Jack Curtis?
I would not lower myself to answer a question like that.
Mom, just simply say no or yes for the ease of stupid people out there.
No.
It did not seem believable. So you had sex with Uncle Jack.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying
The way
that.
you're not saying no is saying it.
I want to write the story about
you
how.
can write all you want, but this is a
no,
podcast.
it's not about that.
And you're going to get many other podcast interviews, and you can't just.
I will say this: Jack treated me like $1 million. Your dad did not. And to go right quick, when I met your dad, I couldn't stand Jack. I was like, he's the most pompous guy I've ever met. I do not like Jack. I told your dad, I said, I don't like him. And so then after a year, I'm like, he is just a jerk. All Kevin talked about was Jack is so wonderful. Jack is so wonderful. I said, he is not so wonderful. Then we had a couple of years in our marriage, and every time we do something financially, let me ask my brother Jack. I said, I know as much as your brother Jack. And this is ridiculous. I got so sick of him bringing his brother Jack. But I started to know Jack when your dad and I were dating, and your dad would disappear into something stupid and be gone all night. And I'd pick up the phone and call Jack at work or Jack at home, and I'd say, this is what he's doing. I'm worried. And so Jack would go,
what would he say?
He'd go, I'm worried too. So we talk all about Kevin. And so then when I married Kevin, and he would.
So you calling Jack, wondering where Dad was, happened before you were married?
Oh, yeah. I started calling. Jack and I became friends over Kevin.
How do you feel if Jack is the one that manipulated Dad into marrying you simply because you?
And
would
I
be
heard
the
that
reason,
story.
Simply because you would be the reason he wouldn't have to go to jail.
I heard that story.
He told Dad to knock some sweet girl up, and that sweet girl was you. And when you went to court 6 months pregnant, they let Dad off, just like Jack always told Dad that would happen.
I heard that story. I really don't believe it because I don't believe your dad would do that. In all fairness, your dad was a very vulnerable person that I met.
Just like we don't think he would shoot an animal because he loves animals.
That's true. But
is that what would you say that's
true?
Connected.
Kevin was the most vulnerable, sweet. He showed up at our first date with a bottle of champagne that he stole from Jack. It was funny. But I was like, oh my gosh, this man brought a bottle of champagne. And we went out.
Did he tell you right away he stole it?
I think he did say that.
That's pretty stupid honest.
Yeah.
That person's not going to lie to you.
Yeah. And he brought me Valentine candy on our date on February 22nd.
Which is thoughtful.
And my boss at the time, Tom Carter, said, wow, he got it for $5 or $2 at Walmart. Yeah, big woo. And was laughing. They were all laughing about it. And I was like, I think it's sweet. Because
you had already slept with men that were not.
No, oh, yes, that. But I had never dated a man on Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
Never. And I lost my grandfather on Valentine's Day.
You didn't date Dad on Valentine's Day, though,
No,
right?
I didn't. I met him.
But post Valentine's Day, he still was bringing you Valentine's Day candy in honor of the month.
Yes. Our first date was on the 22nd of February, and he brought me candy. And I lost my grandfather on Valentine's Day, which hurt so much because the fiance I dated for years broke up with me on Valentine's Day. I have a bad history with Valentine's Day.
Though, because if he hadn't done that, then you probably for a few more years would have tried to convince yourself he was something to chase.
Kevin?
No.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, if he hadn't done you so wrong.
True. And I'll say his name, Flynn. If he had not done me so wrong, I would still be mourning, or not now, but he took my ring back that we had designed, that my son and I had designed.
And gave it to his daughter.
Yes, and I was going to give it to Finn, my grandchild. Kennedy helped him pick it out because I wanted that ring, and I was too embarrassed to say, don't go get me a Walmart ring. I want this one. Flynn said later, you could have told me the ring you wanted. I said, I'm not that type of person. But to take it back, God did that for me. So I would say, oh, no, you're not the person. So
I have this memory of you and Dad were not on, I don't even know what terms I would say you are on today. And that's okay, because y'all are, I can't imagine being an adult, having gone through what you have gone through as a woman, as well as having experienced what you've gone through as a wife, as a mother. I don't think in my lifetime I'll experience most of those things.
I hope not.
I've experienced some abuse. not rape. I've experienced some abuse, and I've experienced certain other things, and I know how hard that was. I don't think I hold a candle to the amount of abuse and pain you've experienced. And just to say that, I remember being in the mall one night, me, you, Dad, maybe the boys were there, I don't know. But we walked by the jewelry store, typically a place that not as a family, we have no business going by. We don't have money. We don't have a reason to buy jewelry. It's just, why would we go there?
Yeah.
It's foreign to our reality. But we went, and you lingered at this opal ring. Don't know why. I think maybe wish someone would buy it, like your current partner at the time. You wish they would buy that for you. You loved opal. You wished you had a reason to have that exact ring. And Dad, being who I know Dad to be, you can ask Dad to buy groceries, to pay the electric bill, and to pay the vet bill. He probably won't do any of those.
He might pay the vet bill.
That's true. He'll pay the vet bill, but he might do it days later. But when you have that conversation, it's going to at first be like a hard no, because everything he does needs to be his decision.
Yes.
However, when you lingered at that ring, you and Dad didn't even like each other. I don't even know why y'all were in the same space together.
Christmas shopping. We always Christmas shop together for you guys.
But y'all were not friends really at this time.
We always, he wanted to know what to get y'all, so we always annually went to the mall.
He's obsessed with Christmas.
And we would hate on each other, but we did the mall, and it was a disaster. That's another story in there, but that's why we were there.
As a 32-year-old, I still expect him to show up on Christmas Day with his red Santa bag, demanding that I believe that this thing is from Santa.
When it is.
I'm sure. That night, you looked at it, you drooled over it, you kept going. And then Dad, I don't know why he had money, maybe a show or two.
Dad always had money. Here and there.
Whatever. He had money. So he said, do you think your mom wants this? And I, of course, yes. Not only does she deserve it, she obviously wants it. He bought it for you without thinking twice. He was just like, I have to get this for her. And you, for a while, really, you didn't accept it. You said no. You said
I was engaged.
It's beautiful. I do love that ring, but I can't accept it. There's too much pain there. It's not appropriate. No, thank you. And it was this really awkward thing. So then I ended up with the ring because it was beautiful and I loved it and I wore it. And then at some point, fast forward to your breakup and him taking the ring back and this and that, and me having gone through a big breakup where I still wanted to wear the ring that I picked out that my ex had bought me. But when I wore it, it didn't mean that I was tied to him. You proudly wore the ring that Dad bought you that night.
It's there now.
It's on
my hand.
You are wearing it.
I am wearing it. I've never, for a while, wore it on this finger, and you told me to take it off because on my left hand, and you said everybody thought I was
a traditionalist. But what do you feel when you look at that ring? I didn't know you're wearing it right now.
Yes, I've worn it since. So story was when Flynn broke up with me on Valentine's Day in 2019, and then he came back and demanded my ring back. And when I get to Ireland, I will buy myself a ring again. But that's why I got this tattoo, because this is a ring nobody can take back. But anyway, the day he took away the ring, and I cried and I cried and I cried. Then you found a box in storage and said, yeah, cheer you up. Here's a box I found. I'm like, that's the ring. It was the box it was in. And you were like, I'm batting 100 here. But anyway, that night I went to bed. And when I woke up next morning, you left this ring with a note saying, here's a ring nobody will ever take back.
I said that.
Yes, that's what it said. And he said, we love you, and this is your ring to wear. And I put it on, and I've never taken it off. When that was 6 years ago. I hadn't had a date in 6 years because I haven't found
Another good memory that made me think of is when we went with Dad to a show at some hotel. And it was the same, I think, weekend as the Tweetyberg suitcase.
Oh my gosh, it was on
he bought a Dad ring.
Yes, it was on I was with him when he bought it, but the Beau Rivage and Biloxi.
Yeah, and those, we all got
wonderful
little things out of it. And we don't want to admit that.
My parents came. He got my parents a free ride. Dad ran the sound system for him.
Oh my God.
And Tammy and her husband came.
I told Dad yesterday, his mom, literally this week, Dad's mom pretended to be her husband and commented on Tammy, her daughter's stuff, saying you and Laura are just alike, blah, 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 bad stuff. And when I was talking to Dad about it, because for a minute there, he didn't know what was going on. I was like, Dad, that's your mom. She's hateful.
But she pretended to be Ed.
But
yes.
I said, Dad, Mama and Papa, who I have been around 85% of my life, I have never heard them say one bad thing about Dad. They've had many reasons to, but they have never said anything bad about Dad.
No, they haven't. And Dad, even Mac asked Dad, he said, why do you still have him at the supper table? And Dad said, in our family, when you're in our family once, you're always in our family. We are loyal to each other.
But my ex, he told him to boot.
Oh,
right?
yeah, he told him to leave.
Thank God.
But Dad
because he
said,
tried to stay.
oh, yeah, Dad said, you don't need to ever come back here. Dad did not like
Because
him.
he was over here telling me that no, they've invited me to live there.
No, Dad said never come back to our place. But with Dad, he said, he told Mac, Kevin even threatened to shoot me. He said, yes. And I said, I didn't even know that. I know Dad threw a microwave at him. Your dad threw a microwave at my dad. But anyway, we were hungry during that time, and my dad didn't understand it. And your dad went nuts because we were going to fish over there, and then we were bringing a microwave to trade for fish. But it was your dad always acted crazy, and so it all went south. But it was just a lot of stuff.
I had a conversation with a friend today, my only friend, really. And I said something to her, and she was offended. After an hour of us going back and forth and her saying her feelings are hurt and she doesn't understand, and me saying, I don't understand why your feelings are hurt, I eventually said to her, I think there's something in me that enjoys telling people what they don't want to hear. I think I got that. I think I sponged that in from my dad. I hate that my dad always tells me and everyone what they don't want, like, read the room. No, if we're having a Christmas dinner or a family dinner, we don't want to hear about who did wrong to who. Mm-hmm. We just want to freaking enjoy each other's company. But I had to endure that a lifetime. And so now there's a part of me that naturally says, you know what? I can tell this thing that I've noticed that they really ignore, but I can tell them and it's going to help them, but I get the pleasure of bringing it to their awareness. And I have these friends telling me they have no interest in hearing about it. Oh, no. And how rude I am to be inconsiderate to tell them that, because they're like, what was the point of that other than evil? Why did you feel the need to bring this random thing up at this time? And so today, for the first time, I was like, I'll bring this up in therapy when I can finally afford to go, because bills have continued growing. When we sell the truck, I will 100%. The first thing I will do is go to therapy. But until Eli sells the truck, instead of a car payment, I'm paying him $500 for the truck. Just to say all that, just so, because I've told you I'm going to get there, and I am. But my first focus is being a good partner. And that means, like, we have farm animal food and all these things. My first focus is that. Once that is taken care of, then my next priority is therapy. And then my next priority is Hot Works, where you go to a sauna and do Pilates and you get in shape.
Oh,
but anyways,
nice. Maybe I'll get to go then.
Yes, I would love for you to go. We should go together. But anyways, I forget where I was going with that.
But you said something about her feelings.
I said, I'm going to bring up in therapy, I wonder if I enjoy telling people things they don't want to hear, because that was my entire life. She then said, I wanted to ask you that exact question, but I was scared to, because I didn't want to hurt your feelings. But I honestly think you might, because to her, it made no sense that I would ask what I did at the time. But to me, it had been a truth of mine for so long. I didn't see anything wrong with it. To me, it was like you're welcome. I'm acknowledging that I care about you enough to let you know what I've been wondering this whole time. But for her, it was very offensive and rude. But anyways, just to say all that, we are affected by our childhood, and we're affected by our relationships. We're affected by our adulthood, by how our children turn out to be, all of it. But at the end of the day, if we can stand up straight and say, I recognize where I was treated wrongly here, and I recognize where I acted wrongly here, there's nothing better we can do.
I was telling Mom that today. You're a lot like your dad in that, and that you got his quick to anger sometimes, but not the work ethic. Thank God you got my dad's work ethic and my work ethic. All my kids mostly got my work ethic. We're working on one. But anyway, I felt like you got that with your dad's personality, but you were first and you're just, we get things where Bram and I are very unconfrontational.
But to a fault.
Huh?
But to a fault.
To a fault.
Y'all are non-confrontational to a fault.
To a fault. I'm learning to address things, but I am 59. The older that you get, the more you get. I say the older I've gotten, my crap meter, I have a crap meter and it gets filled up. And it's just a freedom. The older you get, the more you're like, whatever. Like I told Bram and you, in the 30s, it's a very difficult time. You're far away from retirement. You're like, I've got this time to make myself awesome, but I should be better than I am at this. Or do I love this person? Do I want to stay with this person the rest of my life? Man, I got 20-something years.
I'll have 2 questions to finish up with that are a little more mutual. Okay. So, Tammy Johns.
I know her.
She said, I want to know if you think that the things that happened during this time help to make you and your siblings and mom the incredible, awesome people that you are today.
Oh, yeah. Yes. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So we're very strong people. And quirky comes along with that. So I just feel deep down, I've always been quirky. Your dad's always been quirky. I think we're very, I don't want to boast or something, but good looking back in the day when you're young. And we both loved to sing. We both loved animals. We both loved life. I'm a strong DNA believer, but our DNA mixed for 4 wonderful kids. We helped make y'all what you guys are. I feel like if y'all had been adopted out from day one because of your DNA, y'all would have been quirky and good people. You hear stories of that all the time. Twins that meet and they're just alike and they were separated at birth. But this thing really has made you guys strong. It's also made y'all conflicted. Y'all doesn't like dealing with the drama that we do. You don't think so?
I think that Bram has learned, like the rest of us, a way to make lemonade out of sour lemons. And honestly, the extra publicity is a pro.
True. All my kids are amazing. It's just like I was telling my friend Carrie, Gable, who's in the therapy department and going to be a therapist, I am like using him like crazy in everything he studies. I'm like, what did your therapist say about this? Because he went to his psychiatrist his psychology teacher, and said, did you see that trailer? And he said, that's my family. She goes, oh my gosh. She goes, we got to watch it in class. But all I know is I am using Gable for all his knowledge. Oh my gosh. And
you shouldn't use your children.
I can't. He loves me.
But words matter.
He's my sidekick.
So let's figure out a way to say it, though. So you're not using him.
No, I'm asking him for help.
You're appreciating the person that he has become after all of the stuff.
That kid has been my therapist since he was 12, and he's been my accountant.
And your financial advisor and your chef. He is something out of this world.
He and Starlee are mine and Carrie's sidekicks. There's something to be said when you have a child at 40. It's just a little different.
What Gable has had to do as a child is not fair.
But he also had a lot more fun than the rest of y'all. He didn't have the drama, or we tried to keep the drama low.
I mean, there's fun and then there's drama. You mean hell? You mean he was allowed to, what are we cooking tonight without having a knife pulled? Yeah, that is different.
But all I know is I asked him for all his learning. And I think,
he's happy to
hey, for the crap, I may be his thesis.
But that means you have to meet him where he wants you to meet
him.
But when he says it's time to get therapy, like you've been doing, it's time.
It's just when we drive to Memphis, he holds my hand and talks about things. Each one of my children are my best friends. When you have 2 grandkids and you have 4 children, oh my gosh, and then a job, and then I have several best friends now. Life is wonderful. I never had many friends growing up. I had a dog always, and now I have 2 doggies, and I have Charlotte, I have Carrie, and I have Kathy that talk to me every day, half the day, and then I have Tammy. So I guess I have 4 best friends. I feel very loved, but growing up, I did not feel very loved.
Because you didn't feel seen. I think you were loved in the way that those people knew how to love. I don't think that you just simply weren't loved. I think that you weren't loved in the way that you deserve to be loved.
And even when I was eating my big Christmas dinner today that the hospital gave, Mom was like, save half of your dad. I said, he can eat something else. And I was gobbling it down.
I'm about to turn my camera off
Yes.
if it's not already dead.
I am
And then
starving.
we're going to take some
go.
pictures
Yes.
on our way out.
Sounds
good?
awesome.
I love you.
Now I have to go. But what's our bloopers?
Thank you for tuning in to Make Yourself Moan. Remember, self-love and raw truth are your power. So keep diving deeper and turning up the volume on truth and healing. Until next time, I'm Madison Monroe Curtis, sending you love and loud moans of confidence. If you feel led to, please follow me, like, subscribe on all those socials. I'd love it if you send or email me any and all topics on your heart and brain, and let's unravel those together. Until next time, just keep moaning.